We are reading through the John's Gospel, and at last we are moving to the second chapter of John's Gospel. John's Gospel consists of two types of genre. The first one is discourse, very some philosophical, difficult to understand word stories. But the second one is discourse, not discourse, but the second one is the episode, the stories, events. And the beginning of the second chapter is a story, a narrative. And I believe that almost everyone here will know this story. The outline of today's story is the wedding, the miracle that happened in a wedding in Galilee, in Cana. Is anybody here who have been to Israel, Galilee? So Galilee, if you go to Galilee in Israel, you can visit Cana, a very small town, and it's very famous for wine because of this story. So this story is the first sermon that is recorded in John's Gospel. I'll tell you about the word sermon. So there was a wedding in Cana, and Jesus' mother was invited there, and then Jesus and his disciples also were invited to this wedding feast. Normally the wedding feast lasts about a week in the Middle East, Asia. So around the end of the feast, wedding feast, the problem occurred, which is the wine is running out. The wine is a very important thing in the wedding feast. So no wine is gone. So it is a very important thing in the feast. But the wine for the wedding feast is almost gone. So Jesus' mother Mary asks Jesus what to do. And Jesus says, "Woman, what does it have to do with you and me?" The Greek says that what is this having to do with you and me, which means I don't care. It's not an important thing to me. And he continues that my time is not yet come. And then Jesus' mother Mary orders the servants that do whatever Jesus says to you. And Jesus does something for them, and he orders the servants to fill the water jars to the top and give it to the wedding the master. And it turned into a very delicious wine. And then the feast probably went on, and the first episode ends with the remark in verse 11. Says this is the first sign that Jesus did in Galilee, in Cana, and he manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. So this is the conclusion of this story. The first thing that we are strange is that when Jesus said, "My hour has not come yet," it seems that when Jesus' mother Mary asked, there's a problem here, and when Jesus said, I have nothing to do with that, it looks like that he refuses her suggestion or asking. But he does, because my hour has not come. My hour. In John's Gospel, the hour, the hora in Greek, is a very important word. The time, my hour or the time, refers to a specific time in John's Gospel. As we can see in chapter 12, verse 23, where that is that the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. So, to help your understanding, the hour in Greek, in John's Gospel, refers to the time that Jesus is to be glorified, and then to leave the world, to go back to the Father in heaven. That is the hour. So, and before this time, what Jesus is to do the works of God. So, as you can see in chapter 9, verse 4, Jesus teaches to work during the day, and he works before the time comes. So, it is the time for Jesus to do work. But when the hour, the hora comes, he will stop his working and he will leave to his Father in heaven. So now this is the time for Jesus to do something, not to do something. So that's why he does something for the bride of the wedding. So he did his miraculous thing. Jesus does a Samaya, and Samaya is doing the works of God, the Father. So doing Samaya is revealing his identity. So when Jesus does Samaya, he is trying to show people that he is this person, this kind of person. To show he is this man. And so by doing Samayan, he is showing people his identity and inviting people to believe in him. So that is the Samayan, and then that is the reason that Jesus does Samayan. It's interesting that normally when Jesus does very wonderful things, the Synoptic Gospel authors says miracles. In Greek, it is a dunamis or exousia. So we translate in Korean 기적 or 이적. It's a miracle. But unlike the Synoptic Gospel authors, John's Gospel author does not use that word. Instead, he says Semayan. It's a special word. Do you know the word semiotics? Semiotics or sign. You see, when you drive in the street, you can see the sign. Those words came from this Semayan, Greek. Semayan is a kind of signing board that pointing something or somewhere. So when Jesus does Semayan, it is not just doing wonderful things or miracles. in some of the Gospels, when Jesus does miraculous things, he heals and casts out demons to heal people, those things. But in John's Gospel, Jesus does those wonderful things not to heal or not to help people, but to show his identity. Of course, in John's Gospel, Jesus opens the cures and heals and opens the blind man and the blind man's eyes. But still, in John's Gospel, it is not miracle. It is called Samaritan. Because the purpose of the Samaritan is to point out who Jesus is by telling us those wonderful things. So Samaritan is supposed to help people know that Jesus is the Son of God, the Messiah. That is Samaritan. So when Jesus turned the water into wine, that is not just for helping the host, but to show his identity, who he is. But the problem is, does it work? Does the Samaritan function properly in John's Gospel? That is the question. People believe when they see something amazing in Gospels. And then they follow Jesus, or they believe in Jesus when they saw or experienced those wonderful things. But the question is there faith, a true faith? That is the question in John's Gospel. Let me give you an example. In John's Gospel, chapter 6, there is a very famous story. It's a miracle. Actually, it's a Samaritan, another Samaritan in John's chapter 6, which is 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish story. Jesus fed 5,000 people through this miracle. He fed 5,000 with 2 fish and 5 loaves bread. It's a Samaritan. It's a wonderful thing. The problem is in chapter 6, verse 15, when people experienced those wonderful things, you know what they did? They thought, I think it's good for us to bring him and make him our king. Why? At the time, the Israel was under the rule of Roman Empire. They were oppressed, so they tried to be independent and take back their country. But there was no hero. There was no leader, powerful leader. And when when the people ate the fish and bread, they thought Jesus not as the Messiah or Son of God or somebody, but as the King who will rescue them from the oppression of the Roman Empire. It's politically. Actually, the Samaritan in John chapter 6 was not supposed to make people think like that. It is the Samaritan that is when people ate the bread and fish, they were supposed to oh, Jesus is the true Son of God and our Messiah and Savior. But they didn't think so. Instead, they thought, oh, I will make him our king, my king. Then he will help me. And he will cast out all the bad Roman guys. And he will help us to build up our own country. So that's what they thought. The Samaritans failed. That is the question. Actually, Samaritan was not supposed to do like that. But the problem is that people think that way. So when you look up, when you see chapter 2, verse 23-24, you will find people believed in his name. People believed in Jesus, but when they saw Jesus did this kind of semi wonderful things, but in chapter 2, verse 23-24, but it says that, but Jesus did not trust them. He didn't believe in them. He didn't trust them, the people. Jesus knew that. And John also knows this. And it is, you will see, if you go back to around the end of John's Gospel, chapter 20 and 29, there is a remark. You know, in John chapter 20, there's a story that the story of Thomas. When Jesus, resurrected Jesus, appeared again to the disciples, and Thomas was not there, and when he heard, oh, Jesus appeared to Adam, and Thomas says, no, I don't believe. And then suddenly Jesus appeared to Thomas and touched my hand and put your finger in my side. And Thomas said, oh, now I can believe in you. And Thomas said, oh my God, oh my Lord. And Thomas confesses. And then Jesus tells Thomas that you believe because you saw me. Blessed are those who believe in me without seeing me. That is what Jesus told to Thomas. That is, if you believe in Jesus because you saw something or because you experienced a miraculous thing, John will say, well, okay, you may say, I believe in Jesus, but I don't buy you. That's what John tells us. What does it mean to believe in Jesus? What does it mean? Do you believe in Jesus? Yes, everybody says here, oh, I believe in Jesus. But what is it? What does it mean? What is it? I believe. When you say I believe in Jesus, what is it? Believe in what? And also, why do you say so? Why do you say I believe in Jesus? Why? Why do you say so? Can the wonderful thing that we see or experience help us keep our faith? Experiencing wonderful things or miracles, of course, is very important and it helps. But if we say, I believe in Jesus, I follow Jesus because I experienced this wonderful thing, I experienced this, well, if it is the only reason that you follow Jesus, that is the question, and that is the problem. You know, I believe that almost everybody here have experienced something good or something wonderful when you welcome Jesus. The feelings, the grace, the memory of good things, the feeling senses, or miraculous things sometimes. Those things probably make your own mind that I will follow Jesus, I will welcome Jesus from now on, and I believe in Jesus. But the problem is that people usually forget things as time passes, as time flows, they forget. And it's so fast to get dimmer and dimmer. We lose, we forget. It doesn't matter if it is good thing or bad thing. Pain or pleasure, okay, doesn't matter. When time goes on, we lose senses, we forget. Probably you will have, some of you may have, oh, I can recall the time that I first believed in Jesus, the time when I first welcomed Jesus, I can remember it. But did it get stronger and stronger as time goes on? Well, why? Because people forget things as time goes by. Relying our faith just upon those visible things, only those experiences, our faith can be shaken because we forget, or sometimes bad things happens. So actually the Sin-Kwang was supposed to help people welcome Jesus and understand who Jesus is, but it has limits. Then, if the Sin-Kwang cannot help people grasp that Jesus is the Son of God, why then John, the author, tell the audience the Sin-Kwang? And he also says in John chapter 20, verse 30 and 31, he says that he recorded the wonderful Sin-Kwang, wonderful things, Sin-Kwang, and Jesus' story in order to help people know that Jesus is the Son of God and the Christ, and by believing it, that they may have an eternal life. The reason John told us those Sin-Kwang, wonderful things, is to help us, oh, right, yes, Jesus is the Son of God, Savior, Christ, the Messiah. And okay, I will welcome him and I will believe in him so that I can get an eternal life. That is the purpose. And that's the reason why John recorded 7. There are 7 Sin-Kwang stories in John's Gospel. But as we said, it is not always functioning properly. Like I said, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, feeding 5,000 people. Sin-Kwang or Sin-Kwang quite often make people misunderstand, go astray. Then what's the problem? Whose fault is it? Sin-Kwang or people? I think the problem is the people. We have a limit that make Sin-Kwang or Sin-Kwang helpless. We have limits as human beings. We forget. When time is good, when good things happen, we are hilarious and praise the Lord, hallelujah, and I believe in Jesus, I follow Jesus, say whatever, and thus, when we do those very faithful things, but a week or 2 weeks or a month or a year later, it goes down, it goes calm, and then we forget. That is the limit of us. That's our limit as a human being. But John also knows that the Samaria have limits, but the reason why he continues to tell the Samaria story is that it sometimes works. Although it is not keeping us go on until the end of our life, but it can help us to start. So, when a beginner of Christianity, those miracle things, the feelings, the senses, the gracious experience helps us. But we should not rely on those things for our spiritual journey. You know, when a baby is born, what does he eat? Milk. But when he is getting older, 1 year, 5 years old, 10 years old, what happens? He does not drink from mother, but he eats pop or meal, meat, soup, or vegetables changes. Likewise, although to experience those gracious things is necessary, and it helps for us in the beginning stage of our spiritual journey, but it cannot lead us till the end of our spiritual journey. We need to grow up. Our faith needs to be mature. I want to ask you a question. Everybody here, or almost everybody here, will confess, I believe in Jesus. I follow Jesus. I'm a follower of Jesus. I welcome Him. And I'm walking this spiritual journey. You may say this. But what are you relying on? What is your faith dependent? What is leading your faith in your spiritual journey? We need to think of that. There will be many things that help us keep our spiritual journey. But something just like, feelings or senses, of course it helps, but that's not all for our spiritual journey. At the end of this story, John says his disciple, Jesus' disciples believed in Jesus because they saw those miracles. But what happens to the disciples? They abandon Jesus. They deny Jesus when troubles come. They run away. Quite often, they misunderstand. And John, chapter 14 or later part of John's Gospel, and his disciples says, No, Lord, Master, I do not know. I do not understand. And Philip says, Tell me, show me, God Father. And Jesus rebukes him. You do not understand. How many years you have been with me, but you still do not understand? That's what Jesus told him. You know, like a baby growing up, he grows to the adult, or father and grandfather, grandparents. It's the same in the spiritual journey. We need to grow. We need to grow. And there are many, many dishes in that helps us nourished. But we should not rely just upon one small thing, especially the senses or experiences, feelings. That is not mature, not childlike stage of faith. We need to grow up. And I want to challenge you to think, what is that leads me keep on my spiritual journey? What helps me? What pushes me to walk on? There are many means of grace, many ways to help us, that help us keep our journey. So, for this week, I want you to think of that. Why do I believe in Jesus? And what makes me go on my spiritual journey? Just relying on just experiences or tiny or feelings, that's not enough. And if we do so, we probably will fail like the disciples of Jesus. So let us think of this message through this week and try to find out new sources, new diet. So let us pray.